Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. 15 seconds and then you hung up. I'm like, what the hell?
Hi. But now I'm in the little screen and you're nice, and I can see you nice and big now. So that's good.
Well, that's how it should appear for you on your side, because I see you big on my side. That's why the videos look that way. So
obviously you calling me is better than me calling you.
That's a nice shirt hanging there behind you.
It's a nice shirt I've got on.
I'm trying to get the guy that made these shirts here to show up at the rally.
Yeah. To Charlie, or the guy from Ambient.
You know, that guy over there.
The guy. The new governor. The soon-to-be governor.
Yeah.
Yeah?
He wasn't on the list for the thing that Tracy Coe was posting about.
No,
where the candidates were getting together for a forum.
Yeah.
So, well, I didn't see his name there, but I'd like to.
No, because he hasn't filed yet for the ethics thing, has he? You know.
Wow.
And made me, and I'll tell you what made me laugh. There was a tweet from somebody from like the conservationist party, you know, like the Green Party, you know,
right.
saying that, you know, Charlie needs to sign up for like, so, you know, the being a proper conservationalist. And I'm thinking, hold on a sec, have they actually watched any of his videos?
Where he says
skiing one, he says keep your bottle top, don't pollute the lake. And then that breaking lawn video is absolutely brilliant. That's exactly as it should be, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, right.
I mean, even you conceded with me that, you know, we shouldn't be, as in, you know, people in the climates that don't suit lawns, they shouldn't be trying to grow lawns. And, you know, they don't even allow them to grow before they cut them. Therefore, you know, you're forever having to use fertilizer to grow them, you know?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Not always. Some areas grass grows plentifully, and some other areas it doesn't. So it's a lottery. Yeah.
I always remember a Facebook post by Carla. I'm sure it was like 2 years ago, and it's a line that I use. Carla Chase.
Chase, okay.
Yeah, and it was the the age-old saying, you know, the grass is greener on the other side of the hill. Well, the reply to that is because there's more manure that side.
Yeah, right. It's a good one. It's a clever.
It's a good one.
It's a clever comeback for that one. So
now, can I ask you a question?
I guess. Yeah.
Well, I could have asked you loads of questions yesterday as I was trying to put up that effing TV stand.
That's when you should have been asking me questions. But yeah.
I got there. It fell down first time because it was the metal bracket and straight into the plasterboard wall plugs, and of course it just came away within like a couple of minutes of the TV.
And now she has a TV with a damaged corner, right?
No. I just unscrewed it all, but it did it. Had to come back to the house, to my house, because she's in a different flat, you know, and cut a piece of MDF that sort of fitted over it covers the original holes, glued it as well.
You anchored it to the studs, which is what you should have been doing in the first place.
Well, you see, the thing is, if I'd have gone into the other wall, that was a brick wall, and I could have just gone straight in, couldn't I? You know, because it supplied these big bolts. And
look. This is like your other arguments, like with the Captain Crunch argument. Don't be telling me about the other wall. That's not where they wanted it. They wanted it on the wall where it got hung, and you should have found a stud. So you can make all the excuses you want, but that's where you went wrong there, my friend.
Right. Okay.
Anyways, all right.
So here's my question.
Okay.
In the original trial of Steve back in 2007, the one thing that I think a lot of us felt we were cheated out of was that Steve didn't get up and testify and tell his story.
That often happens.
But seriously, you must accept, though, that for a lot of us, we felt cheated by that because he didn't get the chance to get up and give his side of the story. And I think it was you that mentioned to me that, or somebody mentioned to me that, in fact, a lot of these lawyers and attorneys will not take on cases unless you agree by their stipulations right from the start, yeah?
Yeah, it's very
okay.
common.
In other words, you do what your attorney tells you right from the start, yeah?
It's usually the attorney's decision more than it is the client's.
Yeah,
yes.
And generally speaking, therefore, you would do whatever your attorney tells you to do.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah,
usually you're going to go with their advice.
And you wouldn't go against what they've told you to do, would you?
I mean, it happens.
Okay.
But generally, no.
Okay, so it was about last year, or maybe even further. There was an article in the In Touch magazine. I think it was them that covered it first of all, where Steve complains about Dean Strang and Jerry Buting. Mm-hmm. He does a bullet point of 15, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things he mentions is the fact that a simple reenactment of the finding of the key would have busted that whole situation. And we would never need to ask about that effing key ever again, would we?
Right.
Yeah?
Yes. That is an issue. But as I commented in your other video this morning, mm-hmm. I have often wondered if this is an issue like in the OJ trial. The defense wanted to have OJ try on the gloves in front of the jury, but they couldn't introduce it themselves. They had to bait Christopher Darden into putting forth the request to the court, or the motion, or whatever. Basically, the prosecution had to ask for it. So I'm wondering if this cabinet simulation would fall into kind of the same sort of realm as OJ trying on those gloves, where it would have required the prosecution to initiate it. That is one thing that I've been wondering about. So we might consider looking into.
I still think that obviously at the end of that scene, Jerry is frustrated because he says that the cabinet is here, and I don't know if they intend to bring it in. So maybe it was something that the prosecution have to bring in. But I don't see how that works, because I'm wondering, did Ken Kratz pull a fast one by making it seem as if that cabinet was going to come in, and then at the last minute didn't bring it in?
Well, I wouldn't put it past him.
No, but actually, my point is this: that I then listened to a recording of Steve actually phoning in, complaining about Dean and Jerry, and his exact words were, "They were looking after the state."
Those are his words, yeah.
Those are his words. So my question would be to you then, if, as we've agreed, you do what your attorney tells you to do, and you don't do what she doesn't tell you to do, that statement must have been checked past Kathleen Zellner. Kathleen Zellner must have agreed for Steve to say that.
I would say that there's a fair amount of truth to that, because we already know that in her 1,000-page motion, a great deal of the bullet points that she was putting up in her motion were ineffective assistance of counsel by Dean Strang and Jerry Buting. And Dean and Jerry even signed like an affidavit stating that they possibly could have done some of these things differently or better or whatever. So that's kind of at this point been established. Now, how far is it? You want to go with the likes of, like the gentleman that wrote Buting and the Beast. He believes it goes much deeper, and that it's absolutely maniacal and sinister. And then, there's those who believe it was a difficult situation that these two lawyers found themselves in, and were trying their best to stay clean in a situation where they didn't have a choice or something. I don't know. I don't know the particulars of it myself, but there is something there to be considered, because this isn't the first time people have asked about why that cabinet wasn't brought in. There's been people asking about this for a long time. I don't recall ever getting a very clear answer on it ever.
No, me neither.
In the 2.5 years that I've been, looking into this case, I can't recall ever getting a very clear answer on that. Why in the hell wasn't the cabinet brought in? This is where the key, this crucial piece of evidence, was found. But then again, we hear King Kratz in his closing argument when he basically tells the jury,
yes,
oh well, the key doesn't even matter. Just put it out of your minds. Then forget about it, even if it was planted or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. He's basically admitted to it being planted.
Dude. Didn't you just admit that it? Anyways, it's like the same thing when I'm reading the closing arguments in the Scott Davis trial. The prosecutor says that in a circumstantial evidence case, you have to rule out the guilt of every single party. Like, you have to rule out all the guilt except for the person who's accused. In other words, the defendant. And then she goes on later to say she doesn't know who passed the guilty knowledge of the victim in the case being shot in the head to who. Because the problem is Megan knew, or one of the parties knew, that this victim had been shot in the head while his body was still in a burning fire. So you can see the problem that created, right?
Exactly.
And so in the closing argument, literally pages away from each other, she makes these two statements where what it takes to get a conviction in a circumstantial case and whether or not she has ruled out Megan. She basically says she hasn't. And I just sit there and read that and go, yeah, they can just they don't know. The jury's not really picking up on all this and getting what they're saying, are they? Because she just told them that she doesn't have what she needs to make the case. Yeah. So, oh my Lord. Anyway, so yeah, I always find things like that funny.
I mean, the thing is, I don't want to seem as if I'm sort of having a go at Jerry about this. I sent him an email with what I felt were genuinely nicely worded questions, and to which I would really like a reply, because, I do suspect that when you hear Tom Fallon saying they do so at their peril,
right,
that is meant on so many different levels.
It kind of shows fear, yes. Like
when you
they
hear
make
Kenneth
that statement
Peterson,
out of a place of fear.
Yeah. When you hear Kenneth Peterson say things like, if we wanted rid of Stephen, we could have just killed him.
Right.
That proves the sort of sinister nature of the state and of Montauk Sheriff's Department. And, I can understand if Dean and Jerry, they didn't want to point the finger too far up because they realised that that's a no-no. I suspect that Dean and Jerry would have loved to have put Peg Lautenschlager on the stand and said to her, did Tom Fassbender, who retrained him to not do any more of this tunnel vision investigating. Well, that's exactly what he's gone and done. Is that not right? And she would have had no option other than to say, yeah, you're right. It was a tunnel vision investigation.
No, she probably would have spouted that same crap that Tom Fassbender was. It's what it is it's a funnel investigation where it starts out with a wider range and wider berth or whatever, but as evidence gets collected and it starts to zero in, then the tunnel gets tighter until you get to your suspect or whatever. And I'm just like, oh yeah, oh my Lord. I was like, you guys never casted a wide net. I never saw any kind of a wide net cast in this case. It was all pretty much surgical, laser, precision, kind of, the way that they focused in on what they wanted to focus in on.
Yeah. Which leads me to my next question. Who was more senior, Mark Wiegert or Tom Fassbender?
Fassbender.
Yeah, because he's from the Wisconsin Department of Justice. He answers straight to Peg Lautenschlager, yeah?
Yep.
Lautenschlager,
little soldier.
Yeah. Now, how often...
Wind him up and send him in.
Yeah. How often in Brendan's interrogations does Mark Wiegert get annoyed with Brendan and say, either I'm leaving, I'm about to leave, or sometimes he leaves. And Tom Fassbender is left as the good guy that says, now, come on, Brendan, you be honest with us, and I can maybe get Mark to come back in and listen to you,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's all psychological tactics. It's all psychological conditioning that they were using on Brendan. And And that needs to be addressed. I mean, psychological conditioning is effective on kids like Brendan at that age and of his particular mental demeanor.
I mean, I've always had this problem with, at what point did, probably not Tom Fassbender. Tom Fassbender was sent there by Peg for one thing only. But my problem with Mark Wiegert is, at what point did he realise that he was being stitched up and being dragged into this? I mean, I would like to think that to begin with, Mark Wiegert was one of these guys that, he really did want to investigate and find the truth. But then he found that he was being, as you say, funneled, channeled down this particular route. Remember, Mark Wiegert actually denies that he phoned Andy Colburn with details of the RAV4.
Right, exactly.
That
nullifies Andrew's testimony. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose what I'm saying, and I don't want to be shot down in flames because of this, but I don't know that Mark Wiegert is quite the bad guy. You know what I'm saying? No,
I don't know either.
He's gone along with it, but maybe it's a bit like Dean and Jerry. They could only go so far.
All I can say is this: you notice I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about Mark Wiegert.
No,
but I spend a hell of a lot of time talking about Tom Fassbender.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say with Mark Wiegert, the fact that he came out and the fact that they were fishing, and eventually Mark Wiegert just came out and blurted out the thing about her being shot in the head.
Yeah.
That works in Brendan's favor.
It does. Yeah. He dropped the ball.
So
he dropped the ball.
Well, did he drop the ball, or was he just tired of this? Was he in that room unwillingly, or at least reluctantly? Not unwillingly, but let's just say, was he in that room reluctantly, and going along with what basically the DOJ, because they were calling the shots, so he's going along with the DOJ's orders, and he's in there and he's trying to, get this kid to confess. And I think he started to realize it, especially after times where they are saying, why did you say this, or why did you say that? And he goes, I was guessing. Brendan straight just comes right out and tells them, I was guessing. These things had to register with him in his mind, and if he did have a conscience, as we are theorizing at the moment, and if he did have a conscience, but it wasn't enough to make him blow the whistle, maybe that's what he was. Maybe some of these things he was doing in the interrogation, like blurting out the fact that she was shot in the head and stuff, maybe those were passive aggressive attempts to show his frustration with the situation, because maybe he really truly didn't believe that Brendan was a person of interest here. And because after a certain amount of time, you're watching that interview, and especially if you're in it, you're going to be going, yeah, this kid's just basically going wherever we tell him to go. He's basically, if we introduce it here, he says it within 5 minutes, he spits it back out, and that type of thing. I mean, it had to be obvious, to him what was going on there. And I just think he may have had a problem with it, but not enough of a problem to blow the whistle. He just went along with it, and maybe threw in some passive aggressive attempts to show his frustration.
I mean, I certainly don't like the fact that during Brendan's trial, it's one of the most laughable scenes ever, where he says they had 5 days to clear it up, and it's like, what on earth are you on about, man? You come across as being a sort of somebody who at times displays a certain amount of integrity, and then you come out with a crass statement like that.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's
I don't care if they had 5 months.
Yes. You can't sort of repair all the marks that would have been on the headboard. Forget about the sheets and the mattress. What about the headboard?
Right.
Chain to a
headboard.
Or the
blood in the carpet. That's not coming out.
Exactly.
That's not coming out. Only with bleach are you going to get rid of the DNA. And when you bleach the carpet, you're going to see huge pieces of the carpet that are not the same color, because the bleach made the areas it touched white. So, I mean, here's the problems with why this doesn't work. There's no crime scene. I keep getting that from Thomas Hens. There's a crime scene. There was bones in the fire pit. Shut up, Thomas. God, I love you, Thomas. Look, I think you're somewhat a smart guy, but shut up. It's ridiculous to me. There's no crime scene there. There's no crime scene. Nothing that you say is even close to convincing me of it, Thomas.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was actually messaging him quite a bit on. I think it was Tuesday, and I said to him, Thomas, here in the UK, we have every year incidents where people driving big articulated lorries, particularly coming from the continent, say, Poland, etc., they get stuck down a country lane at a hairpin, or they get stuck under a bridge, or they ended up in rivers, And when they ask them, what happened, it's like, well, I followed the sat nav. No, the sat nav can't be wrong, can it? Yes. The reason why it all points to Steve is because they framed him, and all the evidence is false. Why is it that we can all see it and he can't? He's going to have to go to Specsavers, I tell you.
Yeah.
No, I do like him, and I admire the fact he is such a staunch supporter of Brendan.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Thomas.
what's
I give him that. I mean, I give him that. He's definitely a supporter of Brendan, and he seems to be pretty smart when it comes to Brendan. But it's like all that logic goes out the window when it comes to Steven with him. All that kind of common sense logic just goes away, and it's like he has something personal against Steven. So it's weird.
Yeah. Oh well, that is interesting, isn't it? Because yes, Steven. I don't think he's any angel at all.
Well, of course not.
He was certainly no angel, and
he was rough around the edges.
And I can understand loads and loads of people having reason to frame him. They just didn't like him. Manitowoc, people that actually lived next door. Yes, I can definitely see them having motive to fix him for good. Sure. Now, haven't spoken to you for a while, and of course we had the Brendan's appeal to Scooters and the reply to Scooters by the state.
Well, just the fact that the state is now. Let me tell you what I love about this here. Okay,
go for it.
The state files this response to the writ for certiorari. This thing basically goes through all the reasons why. Number one, just like they've always done, just like they've been leaning on the whole time. It's all they can talk about. AEDPA. They are relying once again heavily on AEDPA. But then, towards the end, they come up with this one other thing that it may be possible that some of the tactics used in the interrogation of Brendan Dassey are coercive or may be coercive, and if so, that would be a matter for this court to decide upon, but this case isn't the right vehicle for it. Basically, new law, they're basically arguing that new law is the answer instead of granting Brendan his writ for his writ of habeas corpus. Yeah. No, sorry, habeas corpus. Because that's what this is ultimately about. It's going to the Supreme Court because he wants his writ of habeas corpus back so that he can get out of prison. So that's what this is ultimately about. The writ of certiorari is just him getting his foot in the door to be heard by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
So
a request for reconsideration.
Right. So the thing is that the same day that the state is sending this thing off about how it's possible that the youth or that Brendan was coerced or whatever, but that's a matter for new law. You got Scott Walker tweeting that day about how it's Mental Health of Youth Day in Wisconsin and blah 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 blah, and just talking up this big old game like he gives a damn about the mental health of the youth and everything like that, and I was just like, oh, these people are such freaking lying shenanigan little pricks, because they clearly do not give a damn about Brendan, but here they are talking about new law may be needed to correct these problems, and Scott Walker declaring mental health awareness day for the youth of Wisconsin. It's just like, it's all a dog and pony show.
Yeah,
it's just smoke and mirrors, man. Smoke and freaking mirrors.
Yeah, I mean, we even had Brad Schimmel tweeting about the fact that he's been in law enforcement for 30 years and has always, considered the, how important it is to protect children and all that kind of stuff, And he had a whole volley of tweets back,
Sure thing,
mine was one of the more polite ones, I said, that's very good, that's very good. Now, when are you going to sort Brendan out? Because that's a big problem,
Right. Sure thing, Mr. On Bank Review.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure I read in that it was a pathetic attempt by the state, by the way. Absolutely pathetic. I mean, it was total drivel from beginning to end. But forgive me if I'm wrong about this, but did they not even list cases of coercion that were worse, where people had been beaten, mistreated by the cops? And they were basically saying, well, so the Supreme Court has allowed that to go on, So we should be allowed to coerce Brendan because it's far less worse than what other states have done to other victims.
But as you
have I got that bit right?
Yeah, but as you see, the law professors and a lot of those people in the amicus briefs were pointing out, the Supreme Court has said on numerous, actually quite a few occasions, that youth require special care. That whole thing about the totality of circumstances, special care, and all that crap. It's not just been said once or twice by the Supreme Court. That stuff has been said many, many times in many decisions by courts that had members change and everything. It's been kind of a staple that kind of always stays the same. And then also we have the fact that the Supreme Court hasn't really weighed in on a habeas case like this in over 40 years? It's been since the 70s. I mean, this is the time we need to make habeas mean something again, just like what Judge Wood and Judge Rovner were saying in their dissents, that by this kind of dubious kind of following of AEDPA, the majority judges are effectively removing habeas relief from the books. I mean, that's scary thought, because habeas relief is one way that we have to check on the state courts, and make sure that they're giving due deference to especially kids, juveniles, especially ones who are mentally limited. I mean, this is the only chance we have for that to get checked, if they are being prejudiced and not giving the juveniles or whoever the proper consideration that they're supposed to. And I think this case illustrates that they're not. I think that the state court's reasonings were unreasonable. I think their findings were unreasonable. I absolutely think that their findings were unreasonable. It's just a matter of how you fall on the AEDPA, I guess. I understand AEDPA. I get what its purpose is. And I know that 98% of the time, its function is vital. But sometimes, and these judges need to realize, and that's what these taped interrogations that are becoming more and more common for them to be mandatory, that's what these things are going to start to teach us. We're going to be able to start to see what happens in interrogation rooms, especially with juveniles, especially ones who are mentally limited, who are inclined to coerce, who 8 out of 10 of the wrongfully convicted kids who were mentally limited, 8 out of 10 gave false confessions. That's a staggering number that needs to be paid attention to. So that's why this stuff now being monitored, being mandated to be monitored, and being required. These are the things, this stuff is going to start to teach us. And that's what Brendan's case is going to be ushering in. I think Brendan's case is the vehicle. I think, at least for habeas relief moving into the future, and cutting back the bite of AEDPA just a little bit. Not a lot, not nullifying AEDPA, but maybe taking a little bit of edge off of it, because I think it's getting trumped up a little too much to be able to be used the way that it was against Brendan Dassey.
I think it's going to be interesting, and I don't want to steal Georgina's thunder, but I think that when you chat with her about it, she's going to be Skyping you from it's not Denmark, no, it's what's it called again? What's that? Netherlands.
Oh, the Netherlands, right? Sorry.
The Netherlands, and I think she's going to be pointing out, because
better if it's Holland, because that's where Heineken comes from. But anyways, go ahead.
It's the same place. And my stuff comes from Denmark, from Copenhagen. But anyway, you know, when I think of places and countries and you know, people that are the most broad-minded of all, we think of Holland. Mm-hmm. I do. You know, I think of yeah. I spent a week in Amsterdam. That was an eye-opener. I can assure you. In more ways than.
You had a salad?
No, no, I was there busking for a week. It was great fun, absolutely great fun. But no, I think she's going to point out, you know, how, you know, sensible, fair-minded people like the Dutch think about certain things, you know, compared with the sort of. It's like the draconian evil system that you have in America, where even prisons are run for profit, and that's one thing that both me and Thomas Hens have agreed on. It's a terrible, terrible situation when you've got profit-making prisons, and you're putting people in there. You know, is it nearly 100,000 possible wrongfully people in there, wrongfully put in there? You know, but anyway,
something else that kind of bothers me over here, though, Paul, is I've been hearing about how some of the rich billionaires and some of the really wealthy, like 1%ers, are actually now trying to go around and lobby all the states to get legislators to take money out of public schools to put them into the private schools, and that to me is, I mean, I feel pretty confident that the people are going to go, yeah, right, no, you're not taking money away from my kids so that your rich kid can go to a school that has more funding than my kid. You know what I mean? I'm sure it'll be voted down. But, God, the writing of the wall of the attempt is just, to me, amazing. Because you understand what it's trying to do, right? It's trying to take money out of the public schools for the kids whose parents don't have a lot of money. They're working paycheck to paycheck to pay the bills and keep dinner on the table and keep the car running to get them back and forth to work and everything, right? So these people are struggling, and they just want their kids to be able to go to school and get a decent education like they got when they were growing up, right? But the writing of the wall is, if these things were to start to succeed, where money got taken out of public schools and put into the private schools that all of the wealthy or rich or privileged kids go to, is that the lower classes are gonna by default get dumber, be less educated, because their schools are gonna be less funded. The teachers are gonna have less time for the individual students, on and on and on and on. The whole avalanche of it having less funding. Right? So these are the kind of things that bother me. You know, like you see that writing on the wall. Obviously, the attempt's probably going to get knocked down, but the fact that they could even attempt to do it is, to me, shocking.
Unfortunately, I am a product of public school type. Yeah, private school. I did go to a private school, a very good one.
And I have nothing against private schools.
No, in Cheltenham, and I think
they're expensive to go to, and your parents have to pay a bunch of money for you to go. If
you just sort of slightly go into that sort of higher earning bracket, then having to pay the kind of fees for private education can be quite hard. You know, this is where, I don't know if you have it in America, certainly here in the UK, we have means testing. You know, you have to provide so much for your child, you know, as we did for the pair of them to go off to their various uni courses. You know, we had to provide a certain amount, but it was based on what we could afford, you know. So I do have a certain sympathy with people who have done well for themselves in trying to get their earning bracket up and up and up, and then they get stung by huge fees. There has to be because for the billionaires at the top, it doesn't matter a jot to them. You know, it wouldn't matter at all. It doesn't affect them at all. But there'll be people lower down in the pay scale for whom they just go above a certain threshold, and then they're getting stung for quite a bit. You know, it's.
Right.
It's not a sort of black and white like so many things.
I'm not saying
it's not so black and white, is it?
But here's the thing, though: they're private schools. They're private. They're not.
And you can choose that.
Are run by the government. They are more right. It is rightful that they are funded by the government. Private schools are not government. So for them to ask for government money to take it away from the government-funded schools or the government-run schools,
that's wrong.
To give them money to run their schools the way that they want, right? That's a problem to me. That's a huge problem to try to take it away. See, because for me, it comes down to the little guy. It comes down to the little guys, and I don't want to see the lower classes, the lower middle class, and the people that are on the borderline poor. I don't want to see them having their kids go to inferior schools and have inferior educations as a result. That's to me a shocking proposition, and I just hope it doesn't happen. I hope everybody stays vigilant.
Well, actually, you've reminded me of a situation that happened a few years back when I was on holiday in Cornwall. The rest of the people with us, they were desperate to go to this thing called the Eden Project. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's these 3 huge big domes where they're sort of replicating like a rainforest and stuff, and it's all to do with being very environmentally friendly, and I didn't really enjoy it that much at all. But what I did like was that there was a band and not like a full orchestra playing some really nice stuff, So I went along to listen to them, and I was chatting to one of the teachers from the school, and I was saying, I'm a self-employed peripatetic music teacher in the Borders. I'm very interested in your setup here, She was saying, well, we're from Hackney. She said 2 years ago, Hackney, the Hackney sort of grammar school or whatever it was, which is in inner London, quite a deprived area. She was saying, it was as far as the sort of assessors were concerned, in terms of how good schools are, it was in the bottom, sort of, it was right at the bottom of how good a school was. Right. She said they then invested a load of money in getting the kids involved in music. What you have here is the result of that investment in the kids, both in financial investment and time, and then. Sorry, she just walked in. Yeah, okay, I will do. You just disturbed my thought. Anyway, but not to it. What this teacher was saying was that following this investment of time and money in the kids, in getting them into music, right, they had gone into the top 10 of schools in England. Right. Because they help their studies in other areas. Right? Absolutely. The power of music, it's absolutely unbelievable. I spent a good time, obviously, chatting away to her, because, and it actually meant that this trip to the Eden Project, which was, as I say, it wasn't my cup of tea, but it was everybody else's, so fair enough, But, my point would be then, therefore, that yes, don't take money from one to give to the other. Just give more money to education. The more you're actually investing in the future, and you're going to save yourself a fortune down the line. Yeah, really. Anyway, talking about music, this CD that was sent to Kathleen Zellner. I heard you saying it might have been a Metallica or a Rainbow. I'm pretty sure it's easy listening. I'm sure it must be. It's something like the Carpenters or Richard Clayderman. I can't imagine listening to Metallica.
And justice for all, my friend. And justice for all.
And what do we know why Tom Fallon has sent this CD? Do we know why?
Well, I don't know. That's what I was speculating.
Was it something that she demanded?
That's what makes me think it might be the CD of the message on the Zipper's answering machine.
Yeah, but wasn't there speculation?
But then again, everybody's noticed that flyover video from the 4th has been edited to deliberately skip the area where the RAV4 is in the video. So maybe it's that.
When was the flyover? Was that not on the Friday?
That would be on the Friday, the 4th.
Yeah. And then it was moved Friday night.
That's the current thought. Yes.
Yeah. It was moved Friday night. So therefore, it will show that there was no RAV4, no sort of bits of wood and bonnets and stuff.
Right.
I mean, if
they would have brought it in at nighttime and cover of
yeah.
darkness, right?
No, but well, the thing is, if the RAF had been there, then you're damn sure they would have used that, and and they wouldn't have needed Pam to go and find it, would they?
Right, right.
So yeah, that's an interesting one. But was it not also speculated that the apparently the message that Teresa left on the Dassey phone was actually...
We've all heard that one though. That one's out
there. But there was speculation that was in fact the one that she sent to the Zipperers. That then they tried to play it as being the one sent to Dassey, about her not even knowing where she was going, so that Ken Kratz could come up with this, she was lured there and all that rubbish.
Yeah, there could be some game playing going on. Certainly, Kratz loves to play games, and then point his finger at us and tell us that we believe in the ends justify the means. He's a cheeky one, that guy.
Well, that's a statement I've presented to Robert Herman quite a few times, and he can never come back at me. But anyway, what's interesting is, could it be in fact that Tom Fallon has now realised that the state are on a losing battle? They that pathetic attempt.
I think they're seeing that people aren't giving up.
To present a case to Scotus. Sounds like a character from a Sesame Street animated.
Don't be disrespecting the highest court in the land, brother. Come on.
I'm sorry.
I know it's the Scotsman in you, but I let it go 2 or 3 times. But come on now.
Is it SCOTUS or SCOTUS or what?
SCOTUS. Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah. I'm afraid
it's not of the United States.
Okay.
Easy there, Scooter.
Scooter. Yeah. What was he a character in? He was a Sesame Street character, wasn't he? Scooter.
He was. I think he was the Muppets.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, right? If anybody knows, you would know, because you love your animated cartoons.
I actually do.
I know you do. Rick and Morty. Who the hell were they? I had to look them up.
Dude, Rick and Morty are very popular, my friend. You know what's great about Rick and Morty? Come on, dude. All right, let me go.
I've never seen
it. Tangent. I'm gonna go off on a little tangent here, real quick. The thing that is brilliant about Rick and Morty is that it's like the Doctor, right? It's like Doctor Who, except Rick isn't a Time Lord. Rick is just a phenomenally smart human.
Right.
Just a phenomenally smart human being. And he's built a spaceship. He's built a trans-dimensional device, kind of like you see on Sliders, the show Sliders.
Right.
If you ever saw that show Sliders, but kind of like that. So. Anyway, it's like a little handheld device. He's able to create a portal, and they can step through into a parallel dimension and things like that.
Right.
So he's just like this really smart guy, but he's an absolute alcoholic and has a severe drinking problem. And, so it's just hilarious. And he takes his little.
He's Scottish.
He takes his little grandson Morty on most of his adventures with him, and they just get into all this stuff. And the thing that's so funny about it is he's an anti-doctor, because he is just a nasty, negative, kind of just, very, very salty individual, I guess, is the way you would say it. So it's really funny the way it works out, whereas the Doctor's more friendly and jovial and that sort of thing. Rick is more like, nah. Yeah, the universe is finite. All the stuff that you dream about or whatever, it doesn't matter for crap, because you're going to be dead, and blah, blah, blah. Like, he's just like, he's that way. Like, he talks like just that straight, frank, like, doesn't sugarcoat anything. It's just hilarious. So he's like an anti-doctor, so it's hilarious. So that's what I like about it.
Did I hear that dog Bluey barking in the background then?
No, that was actually a different dog, Kira.
Right.
Blue,
right. Another
Blue
one.
is
another
Blue
one of
is
yours.
my boss's wife's dog.
Right.
And every time I have to go over to the house to fix the electronics or do something over there for my boss, I end up Blue comes running out with his tail wagging, running up to me, and he's great. He's awesome. So him and I were getting along so well. That's when I got the idea. I was taking videos of him while I was there, and then I decided I wanted to add him into videos. So
good. No, so really, what I was trying to say earlier was that is it feasible that Tom Fallon now realizes that, you know, it's time to actually start
take all of this seriously. He certainly
taking it seriously.
And that could also be this thing with Mark Wiegert. You know, I was thinking that earlier. I said it somewhere in a comment that, you know, maybe this is them trying to get people into key positions to try to hole up the dam. Like they're trying to plug the hole.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get certain people that they know are players and playing ball with them to be in certain places to try to help hold this thing together as long as they can possibly try to make it hold together. That's kind of what it possibly occurs to me as. That they see Mark as a team player, or at least as as somebody who's going to play along, even if his conscience pricks him.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, I sent you that email that he sent to me, which was notable because it was the 11th anniversary of that confession.
Yeah.
You know, and he's saying, you know, I stick by everything done in the case. I 100% believe that they're guilty. I hope at some point to be able to answer your questions. And if you get the chance, read Ken Kratz's book. And I'm thinking, you do not want to align yourself with Ken Kratz. That is not a very sensible thing at all.
Not at all. Well, where'd you go? Well, everybody, I think Paul's Wi-Fi crapped out again. Oh, there he is.
Here we go. Sorry.
Oh.
I don't know what you called to me. I don't know what you called to what I was saying, but, you know, it was to do with the fact that, you know, he doesn't want to align himself with Ken Kratz.
Yeah. But he will. Because Ken Kratz is somebody who's out there making public statements about the case he can point to without having to make any himself. That's what he really wanted to avoid.
Mm.
He didn't want to make any statements himself. He just wanted to point you at somebody else's statement so they could take the heat.
Mm. What I must admit, what I do find very, very, very odd about all of this is, you know, having spoken with likes of Robert Herman, having, you know, emailed Mark Wiegert, getting reply back. It was the fact that, you know, they there's no sense of embarrassment with them whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, there's this whole pathetic reply by the state to the you know, to SCOTUS. I mean, as you pointed out, it was interesting. They never mentioned the control question in there at all, did they?
No.
Because even now they are embarrassed by the fact that the judges on the en banc review, they mentioned it.
Yeah, and I'm out here calling as much attention to it as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Mark was right. I was down in Windsor as well yesterday, as well as fixing the TV bracket, you know. But luckily, I fixed up one of Peter's.
So you're telling me he really saw you with your shirt?
Aye.
Oh, you guys are full of it. And I don't believe it took you. I know, and I have a feeling you struggled for much longer than 5 hours with that TV.
Oh dear. I tell you, the banter that me and Mark have over the years is unbelievable.
Your video's not coming through, Chief.
I can see you.
I know, but we can't see you. So before we end the call, I was hoping your face was going to show up again one more time.
Oh, you don't want that. Honestly, let me see if I can... I
want everybody to see this shirt again. There we go. Wait. Oh. Got a black screen now. Oh, no. Back to your little symbol, the PC symbol. Oh, here we go. Something's happening.
Yeah.
Black screen again.
So if I reverse it...
There you go. All right. See, there it is, the control. Ask me about the control question. I do hope mine gets here before I leave for the rally.
Oh,
I do
I would imagine.
I'm planning to interview people there. I know I'm going to talk to Dave Bagatka. I think he's talking about he's going to be there.
Yep.
I'm very much hoping that we can get Charlie Barons there. So
yeah,
Mr. Recruitment, work on that. I would love to be able to just talk to him there real quick. I don't expect him to be a super supportive of the boys or anything. He may have some issues himself with what happened to Brendan. If he wanted to stick to just talking about that, I'd be good. So just I know that you talk to him a lot, so if you want to work on this, let him know I'm not expecting a whole lot. If he just wants to come in and say, yeah, the plight of juveniles in our criminal justice system is something that concerns me, and leave it at that without getting too controversial, because I know he's running for governor, I'd be cool with that. But I'd really love if he would show up and show that much support for juveniles. You know, that would be great. So
he actually sent me a message to say that he was going to send me something in the post. I presume it's a contract to be the future general attorney of Wisconsin once he's the governor.
You keep saying general attorney, man. You're cracking me up. But yeah, okay, yeah, maybe. Well, probably not though.
It's the general attorney, isn't it?
Well, he's gonna no, it's attorney general.
Oh, come on, dude. You're not going to split hairs like that.
Well, kind of. I mean, it's not just splitting hairs, dude. A general attorney is maybe an attorney that practices 5 or 6 different kind of branches of law, right? That could be a general attorney, right? But the attorney general, having general after the attorney tells you he's the head honcho of all of them. He is the general, right? Not a general. Not general as in... You see how, I mean, that's how, yeah, anyway. This is how the English language works. This is how I was able to pick out the control question, which is on that shirt behind you, or which is being, called attention to on that shirt behind you. So, yeah.
There was a question that Mark never included in his survey.
Which is,
and it was, how many countries need to partake for it to be a World Series? Answer that one, dude.
I didn't have to do with the case, Paul.
You evaded that one well.
Hey, dude, if you want to start the Crunch Series survey and add a bunch of questions like that, go ahead. I'm sure there'll be enough people that will be entertained by it that it'll get some attention. I know. We'll probably see Tiffany Harpin for sure.
Yes. Yep.
And Tracy Coe.
Yep, they were both on my side for starters. I mean, you're going to take such a kicking. It's going to be embarrassing,
Oh yeah, sure it is.
You're going to be want to put out your misery before too long.
What were the names of his crew again? Alfie. Yeah, that's like Alfred the Great. He was
Horatio.
What was the other
wasn't
one?
he?
The chick. What was the chick's name? Oh yeah, it was Brunhilde.
Brunhilde, that's right.
German. That may not be English, but that certainly shows that he's collecting his crew from somewhere in Europe, I would say.
Yeah, but hold on a sec.
Then he had Carlisle.
Hold on a sec.
Where do we have Carlisle?
Well, hold on a sec, dude. You're getting carried away. You're getting too excited here. You've been having too much Dr. Pepper. You're getting too excited.
Carlisle is in Scotland.
What? Carlisle isn't in Scotland. It's in England. But you wouldn't know that because your geography is like your geography is like my home DIY skills.
If Brunhilde was in Germany and that brought us away from England, well, Carlisle brought us right back.
Have you never seen the film Django
and then he had one
Unchained?
token American, Dave.
Yeah. Hold on. Did you ever watch that film Django Unchained?
Yes.
Yeah,
Great
and it's
movie.
Got what's his name?
Fox.
Samuel L. Jackson
as the Uncle Tom. Yeah.
And apparently he wanted to be Django like 20 years previously. What was the name of Django's wife? Was she not Broomhilda?
Could have been. She was renamed by the German family that she was raised with, so it could very well
exactly.
be.
So you've got many occasions of Americans being called Broomhilda.
Oh yeah, and Alfie, like Alfred the Great, and Carlisle. I mean, look at the names of his crew? Yeah, you're reaching, buddy. That's a reach. The names of his crew kind of tell me where he collected it. And that tells me that the jumping off point for Captain Crunch is somewhere closer to Europe than it is to America, my friend.
I fear that this case is going to rumble on further and go longer even than Steve and Ava and Brendan Dassey.
We'll see. I think everybody's pretty much had their fill of the Captain Crunch debate, but we'll see if this video sparks up any more debate on the Captain Crunch debate.
Absolutely, yeah. But as I say, getting back to this CD that's gone to Kathleen Zellner, is it possible that they're beginning to realise that the time has come because
I think
Kathleen Zellner is lining up her ducks, I think.
Yeah. I think they're starting to fill their pampers. I think they're starting to realize how serious this is. They're starting to realize that Kathleen Zellner, is no joke. She's probably going to get Kalizinski off. You can't argue with the amount of success that Kathleen Zellner's had. You can't. If I was them, I wouldn't be able to just dismiss her. I would be concerned about what she was going to pop up every single day. Whatever she was going to pop up with. If I was them and was culpable, I would be worrying every single day when I wake up. Oh boy, will she find something today? That's what if I was them, that's most likely what I would be thinking.
Yeah, because I might be wrong on this, so I'm going to ask you because this is how I sort of put things together. Is the fact that Kathleen Zellner wants to test more stuff. In order to test more stuff, there has to be a judge that's prepared to say, probably a federal judge that's prepared to say, yes, there is merits in this. We need to look further into this. And at the moment, the state courts are just saying, please just go away. We don't want anything to do with this. And this Sutkovich was just a pawn in all of this, She was never, ever going to go any further than she did. And she probably got told off for even allowing those 9 bits to go to Zellner, because we now have a bullet that has got a very, very simple and boring little story to tell. Nothing like the exciting one that Ken Kratz would have us believe,
Yeah.
So it's like she needs to get the evidence tested again, retested. Yeah. And then everything.
I know Skip Palahniuk wants to get his hand on those skull fragments desperately.
Yeah.
There's something he saw in the radio spectrography that something about his expertise is telling him something about that, and he wants to get his hands on it desperately to see if he's right.
Yeah. So then it's a case of once all the state's evidence has been retested and debunked, I can't see the state wanting to take that to court again. I can't see them wanting to retry Steve.
We couldn't see the state wanting to, after being 2-time losers with Brendan, we couldn't see them wanting to go for being 3-time losers. But they didn't. And then suddenly they threw that Hail Mary and
no.
And they
I
got
always saw that. I always saw that. I never believed when they said that Brendan was to be released in those 30. I always knew then that they would wait to the last minute and then they would appeal it, because that's the kind of, excuse my French, bar stewards that they are.
But what I'm talking about is Duffin ruled his case overturned, the confession involuntary. Then it goes to the 3-judge panel, 2-1 decide, uphold the decision of Judge Duffin. That makes Wisconsin 2-time losers at that point, because they lost when Judge Duffin overturned it. They lost again when the 3-judge panel affirmed Judge Duffin. So that makes them 2-time losers. Then they go Hail Mary on bank review. That's what it was. Hail Mary is what that was. And if you understand what a Hail Mary is, you understand why I'm using that terminology. It's a play that is not really designed to succeed. It's generally always going to fail. But you just try it anyway because you're throwing the ball in the air into the end zone, and hopefully one of your receivers gets high enough into the air to get their fingers on it and come down in the end zone with it. It's nothing but a shot and a prayer.
I think I'm right in saying that, and this is unique for De Rogers number 12. I think he's had 2 in his career, which is something to be said for
2 in how many games in a career?
Well, his wasn't the original one, as you say, but it was you know, it's interesting, that, isn't it? Anyway,
yeah, but I mean, how many games are in a career? 16 games a season in a career, and it happened twice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's no, it certainly was. I don't know if it was a Hail Mary or if it was a case of, you know, they always knew that there would come a point when, you know, everybody would start siding with them because they're the state, and, you know, these judges don't want to, you know, cause the state problems.
Yeah,
I think there's
anybody
a whole
that looks
level
at that
of
interrogation tape has to be hit by what they're seeing. I mean, I believe equally that people have to be hit by that when they look at the interrogation of Brendan Dassey. So you may be right. There may be an inclination to want to support the state, just, you know, kind of automatically. But then there's also the fact that when you look at that confession, when you look at that interrogation, it stays with you. You can't just forget about it easily because it stays with you. At least for a little bit, you know, at least for a little while. And if you're people like us, you're a glutton for punishment, and you keep reminding yourself.
There was one thing I meant to ask you about, and, you know, I'm sorry to keep harking about the control question.
Yeah.
But it's actually, it's not the bit after that, and the fact that the judges have quoted that. It was the fact that before that, Tom Fassbender said, you know, to Brendan, did you notice if she had any, like, is it piercings or tattoos? He actually mentions the word piercings.
Right. Which we clearly hear Karen Hallbach said she had a belly piercing. Now,
I'm sorry, dude, to use a cruel term, you know, but you don't look at the mantelpiece when you're poking the fire. If she had any kind of piercing on her stomach, Brendan would have noticed that.
I think so.
You know, I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, being an inexperienced individual, if he was actually into it, which is completely against everything that we know about his character. But let's just go along with the prosecution and say, okay, it's possible. If he was the kind of kid who hadn't been with a girl yet, he would have been drinking in. Literally, he would have been drinking in the imagery of her naked body for probably several minutes.
And
that's kind of the way it goes with the guy.
He would have been recalling it. He would have been recalling it.
Right. Yeah, he would have been searing it into his memory, sort of. It's the way it goes with any guy the first time he sees a girl, you know, because he's been waiting all throughout his puberty to see it. So it kind of gets built up in his head, and he takes the time to drink that imagery in when he first finally gets to see it. So he would have been paying attention, to be certain. And
so it makes you wonder why Tom Fassbender didn't say, we know that she had a body piercing.
Mm-hmm. Well, if he would have done that, it wouldn't have been a control question.
Because what is a control?
The main thing that made it a control question is the fact that he was offering a false fact. The fact is, the whole thing that makes a control question is the fact was false. And that's why it's a control question.
Well,
and not just another probing question.
Yeah, I looked up control question and found a lot of stuff about the, about it being used on these lie detector tests or whatever they're called, you know.
Right.
To me, control questions were simply, that's right. They're simply questions to which, you know, you get your interviewee to, or the person being interviewed, to tell you stuff which is genuine, so that they start to believe you.
Right.
So I don't understand why they told him something that was wrong.
They ask you questions where the answers are obvious. You know, because they know how old you are. They know what your name is when you come in or whatever. So they ask you those questions because they know that when you answer that, and then they can see your readings when you answer those questions, which they know the answers to. And then that way it helps them to understand the readings when they start asking you questions that they don't know the answers to.
Right.
So. But yeah, and that's what they're doing there. They're basically testing Brendan because they were probably getting the inkling that they knew that people might someday question the fact that Brendan might have been fed all this information by them, and they were starting to worry about some of their tactics, and they did this control question because they wanted to offer a fake fact, and get Brendan to resist it. And if he did, then it would go even further to proving that he was not being bullied or overborne. But the fact of the matter is, had Tom Fassbender stopped before he said, "Do you disagree with me?" the control question would have been a success for him. It would have been a success for the investigators. But he went that extra step, and he asked, "Do you disagree with me?" At which point Brendan basically, basically like figuratively crapped his pants and went, "No, I don't disagree with you. I just don't know what it was."
And was that preempting
a fear reaction?
Because if you bear with me, there's actually quite a pause about this, and do you disagree with him? And he goes, "No, but I don't know what it was," and it was almost as if he knew that the next question was going to be, "What was it of?" What was this tattoo of? I got the sense that he was feared that they were going to keep on about this, something which he was going to have to keep guessing and guessing and guessing about.
He was starting. Yeah, he thought this was like every other question. He was answering it like the way, because this is why it was conditioning, because he was reacting to it the way he would react to every other question, and he was about to start guessing for them. He was about to, like a trained seal, and start performing for them. And that's essentially what happens all throughout that interrogation, which is sad.
Well,
so,
yeah,
we are now at an hour and 5 minutes, so I think we've had a lot of discussion here.
I
think about.
I could have put up half a dozen TV brackets in the last hour. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, now that you know how it's done, it gets easier after you do a few. Trust me. I hang usually. At a minimum, I hang probably 3 TVs a week, and in a good week, I could hang as much as 15 to 20 TVs. So you gotta know how to do it.
Well, I once changed a timing belt, a cam belt, on a car that was the job was allowed an hour and a half, and I did it in 45 minutes. And it was the one time the boss gave me applause and said, "Oh, well done, you did well there." Because they still get paid for the full price of the job based on it being an hour and a half,
Right. So that other 45 minutes is profit in their eyes, right?
Yeah. But no, that was a few years back
until that guy's coming back the next day, like, "Man, it ain't running right." No. I'm just kidding with you,
buddy. All you're doing is you're baiting me to come back with more and more.
Oh,
and
I know.
You just love it. You just love it.
Are you kidding me, dude? Like, are we under any illusion? Look at your tribute to Irikoze videos, dude. You bash me the whole time. We're not under any illusion here, buddy. We know you're going to bash me. So, yeah, I may get in a few licks here and there. Deal with it.
I know.
Alrighty, bud.
No,
it's been a pleasure.
The bracket took 2 hours, if I'm being truthful. It did. Because I had to come back.
Windsor in time to be caught on the TV cameras where Mark saw
Exactly. With my TARDIS that I keep in the shed.
Right. Let me just, for my next call, I'll go get my my big wading boots, because it's getting pretty deep in here. So.
Yes.
Let's get some duck hunting boots from Mr. Charlie Barons at the rally if you get him to show.
Yes. have you been in touch with him yet?
I've talked to him a bit. Yeah, a couple times on Messenger and a few times through Twitter. A couple times through Twitter. So
yeah. I've
been tweeting at him that I want to see him there in the duck jacket and that sort of stuff. So there's been no response. So I was hoping my good buddy Paul, who talks to him often, might be able to nudge him as well.
I'll certainly mention it. I'm actually going to send him something in the next few days. I'm going to do a wee video, and I'm going to send it to him. If I can get that, I might even get that done tomorrow. So I'll just drop a mention, because you know how cool Charlie Berens is, right? You do realize his brother.
He's always responding to me.
His brother is like 10 times cooler than him.
Yeah.
And do you know how I know that?
How's that?
Because he plays the accordion.
Ah, I see. Well, there's some more of that bias they talk about that was present in MaM. Except your bias is for the accordion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Alrighty, buddy. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure.
It has. It's 10:15 here. It'll be soon be near my bedtime. I've had a hard day of it. I've had a hard weekend of it.
Yeah. You're probably after another 5 beers. That's about it, folks. Yep, it's bedtime for Capaldi there, Blue. Please hit subscribe.